So we have, we studied something called as interpretation, right? So do you
Yeah,
remember
ma'am.
what is interpretation?
It's like explain, elaborating the laws, the golden rules, and using this thing, understanding of laws, basically.
Understanding of laws, right? So we try to
Fair.
derive meaning, or we try to understand what is meaning of certain words which are being used in the legal text or in the statute. That's what we see interpretation. There is another word which is used, that is construction. Okay, both are a bit similar. Interpretation, as in we try to understand meaning of the provision or meaning of the words given. Okay, there is another word called as construction. Okay, now what is construction? It means drawing conclusion from the written text. Fine, there is a provision applicable. You understood meaning of the provision, but what would be its implications, right? What will be the outcome of that particular provision? That's nothing but construction. Okay, so interpretation refers to the linguistic meaning of the legal text. What this certain provision means, that you understand by way of interpretation, but the purpose of construction is to decide the legal effect of the words. Because this certain thing is written, because we have derived the meaning, now what would be its effect or its implication, that we try to find out by way of construction. So in the case where the simple meaning of the text is to be adopted, then concept of interpretation can be applied. But in case where literal meaning of the legal text results in ambiguity, maybe it's like confusing or it's difficult, right? In such cases, construction is to be adopted. Like I mentioned, that if you are translating a statement from Hindi to English, if you translate it word by word, it might become meaningless. We need to see the entire sentence, and then we need to translate it, because the construction of sentence is a bit different in Hindi and English. Same ways, in case the by deriving meaning of the written words, if it's not making sense, if it's ambiguous, we may take help of construction over there. Okay, so when we talk about construction or even for interpretation, there are certain aids which are being used. Okay, so there are certain aids. So what is aid?
Mm, aid is like helping, ma'am. Something like
Helping, correct.
support.
Right, we say, right, legal aid. You
Yeah, ma'am.
also have legal aid, or might be you have already got legal aid program. Some places they would take you. That's nothing but helping, right? Like we say first aid provider, or some aid is commonly used, right? So here we are saying internal aid to construction, as in internally there are certain things which are going to help us in construct or in interpreting different provisions of law. Okay, so what is internal aid? Internal aid to construction are used by, again, courts to derive conclusion from the legal provisions of different statutes or different rule books. Construction refers to drawing conclusion from the written text which is given in a statute or which is given in a legislation. We try to derive conclusion from it. And the purpose of construction is to find out the legal effect of the written words or the written rules. Now, when we talk about aid, aid to construction, aid is nothing but a device that helps or assists in performing some work. While performing function of construction, the court can take help from certain things which are present within the statute itself. From there, we can take help, and we can understand meaning of a certain thing, or we can understand impact of a certain provision. That's nothing but internal aid to construction. Some examples would be title, heading, preamble, etc. However, if the courts take help from outside the statute, it is called as external aid to construction, like government circulars, publications, etc. Apart from the legislation, there may be some other things from where we derive some information to understand meaning. Okay, that is called as external aid, because it's not there present within the statute. Sometimes you would see there will be a legislation, and there will be different rules based on that. So you can take help of those rules to understand meaning of a certain provision. That's nothing but external. Okay. For example, central motor vehicles rules, like that rules will be there. Okay, so just to give an example, Right to Information Act. You must have heard of it, right? What is this legislation?
Like right to information, like for example, auditor has to give information about our auditing and all those stuff. He cannot hide those information from us to like to audit or something like that. We have right for that auditing information. What it does.
We have right to seek various public information. So when we talk
Yes, ma'am.
about this Right to Information Act, sometimes it might happen that you are seeking a certain information which is contained in 1,000 pages book. Okay. Now maybe I am a certain department, you are asking me for that information, and that information is available in like hard copy. Okay, it's not available in soft copy. Now, if I need to provide you that information, it would be very expensive, right? 1,000 pages I need to Xerox, print out, or whatever. In such cases, what I will do is, or also to ensure that you are not just, like asking for any random information, because when you need to pay, you will ask for whatever is needed, right? You would not randomly start filing RTI applications. That's why this information is not provided entirely for free. Okay, whatever is the cost of providing the information, that cost the person has to pay. Now, take for example, you are applying for certain information. Okay, how much you need to pay for that 1,000 pages, or to apply for it? What is all these rules and regulations? Right? It's not given under this act, but it's given in something else called as Right to Information, Regulation of Fees and Cost Rules. As in, most of the acts will have a rules. Okay, so rule book would tell you details about certain rules and regulations that apply. So if you are taking help of these rules to understand a certain provision, there we will say it is external aid to construction. Okay, it's not within the legislation, it is external. But when we say internal aid to construction, it would be what we get inside the legislation itself. Okay, clear, right? Now, when we talk about internal aid to construction, one is very important, that is preamble. So, preamble is nothing but like the starting point of a certain legislation, which explains what is the meaning or purpose of this certain legislation. Okay, so preamble is very important, which tells us what is the purpose of this legislation and what this legislation is all about. It's nothing but one of the very important internal aids to construction. Okay, then we have long title and short title. When you open a certain legislation, you will see details. Okay, so short title, extent and commencement of the act. So you would get the entire details. What is name of this legislation is Right to Information Act. In short, you might say as RTI Act. It extends to the whole of India. All this extent, commencement, title, all of this also is nothing but something which helps us interpret the provisions or construct the provisions. Okay, like if you want to know if a case has been application has been filed in Jammu and Kashmir, whether person can seek that information or not, there you can see the extent of this legislation, and you can decide whether RTI Act would be applicable in Jammu and Kashmir or not. Like that, these provisions also help us a lot in deriving meaning out of a certain thing. Okay, when
Ma'am,
we
it's there in parts of statutes also, no, ma'am? Long
yeah,
title,
parts of
short title.
statutes also, correct. Parts of statute
Okay.
also it is there, because within statute, what are the things which help us in construction? Same ways we have
Okay.
preamble, starting point of
Uh-huh.
the legislation, or
Constitution.
gives details.
Constitution also there is preamble.
Yeah, constitution also there is preamble. Most of the legislations will have a preamble. Okay, sometimes you would see it like an objective, it is written like an act to provide for setting up of practical regime, like why is this legislation, like that sort of objective or preamble you would get in most of the legislations. Okay, then
Okay,
we
ma'am.
have heading and title of the chapter. So it might be arranged in different chapters, in different parts, in different headings, we would get it. Then we will also get definitions under a certain legislation. Like when they say right to information, from whom can we seek information? Is it that you can file an application to me asking, okay, what is the color of your house? That is not information what we can seek. Okay, so what information we can seek, that's also being defined just to make it clear. Okay, so all these information we can seek, from whom we can seek, that is also mentioned. Who should be providing that information, that is also being mentioned. Okay, so there was like a lot of people think that okay, there is something called as RTI Act and they can seek for any information. Okay, so there is one organization, okay, where I worked. They were helping in filing RTI applications. Okay, RTI is first appeal, second appeal, and everything. There, one person had requested to file an application that my wife is, I think my wife is having extramarital affair. I want to know with whom she is having an extramarital affair. So that was the kind of information that people want to seek. So that's not something which can be provided, right? So it's very important that we define these words so that people are clear on what you can ask, what you cannot ask under this act.
That all comes under definition, like what?
Yeah, that's why definition is important, so that people do not think that they can just randomly ask anything, right? So this is important.
Okay.
Then we have illustrations also, which help us understand the complicated provisions like in Indian Penal Code and all those legislations. Illustrations help a lot. Then we have proviso also, that this is what generally happens and this is what in a specific situation would happen, like provided exceptional situations are mentioned there. Then we have explanations also. Sometimes a provision may be given, after that they would give explanation 1, explanation 2, just to make it very clear. It's commonly seen in Indian Penal Code because provisions are complicated there.
Ma'am, proviso means what, ma'am?
Proviso is like exception. Okay, this is what it is, but provided or exception. Okay, like as a general rule, contract without consideration is not valid, but it might be valid in some cases. What are those some cases? That's nothing but proviso. Okay, proviso is like exceptional situation. In normal situation, something would happen, but there are few exceptions to that general situation. That's nothing but proviso.
Okay.
What are schedules? Do you remember schedules?
Schedules are like, for example, Bear Act, ma'am. Can be tell as schedule, which tells us like, for example, Motor Vehicle Act, it tells us how to ride on, like following. I don't know how.
It's
That was done in
additional information that you,
additional information.
yeah, like
Yes,
under
ma'am.
Motor Vehicles Act, you would get the details in schedule and what sign or signal means what.
Yeah.
Right? That is nothing but,
Like in general, we can detail in definition of certain information, ma'am.
yes,
Schedules.
detailing, not like definition, detailing, you can say detailing of certain information.
Oh.
Then we have punctuation also, which also helps us because that's how we properly understand a certain word, right? Without full stop, without comma, it would become like confusing otherwise. So punctuation also help us understand. Yeah. So these are nothing but internal aids of construction, which are similar to the parts of statutes, which we have.